Hey there. Hi to Argentina too. Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to Polytech Connect. I'm just going to share and switch my screen. I'm sure I've got a few more people will jump in. Let's just get going. Just bear with me. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to move this around so I just can see. Super. Here we go. Sorry, it's all about sharing screens now, and hopefully you can all see my screen. So we're going to just get on our way. First things first, I have 3 questions to ask all of you, if I may. Micah is with me on this call. You can't see her, but I can. And I'd like to know if everyone viewing can see me. If you can see me, there's a button at the bottom. Just press it, the hands up button, and Micah will give me the thumbs up that most of you can see me. We've got the thumbs up, so that's great. You now need to press your button to put your hand down. Can you all hear me okay? Maybe you might have to unmute something on your computer, but again, if you can hear me, put your hands up button. It's down in the middle of your screen. Mike has given me the thumbs up, so that's super. Now, I know that I've got some new people this week, so can I just confirm that for some of you, this may be your first Polytech Connect. If there are new people online, could you put your hands up now, just so we get an idea of how many people are new? Mike is just going through. Yeah, we have quite a few new people. Okay, that being the case, I wanted to just establish a few more things. At the end of this session, time permitting, we will hopefully do a Q&A session. This week, if you have a question, please can I ask you to use the Q&A box. Again, it's down at the bottom of your screen, and Micah will look to ask questions at the end. If you do it in the Q&A box, it means we keep a record, which means if we do miss answering, we can get back to you at a later stage once we've reviewed the questions. So Polytech Connect, let me just introduce you to what this is. This is our new platform to connect us wherever we are around the world. It's our internal webinar platform, and it's about us staying connected. At the moment, we're going to be doing weekly webinars, and we're going to focus on all things Polytech. So, really it's the educational program that I'm working on that I deliver during my trainings that I give, usually in a personal manner rather than on an internet manner. Polytech Connect is all about us, wherever we are, staying connected to the Polytech team, to the Polytech family. It's about us staying engaged. We are living through challenging times. I said this last week. Coronavirus has come along and impacted all of our lives in many different ways, some more than others. Some are actually, I'm very happy to hear, are coming out the other side of this, and we have green shoots appearing. Certainly out in Asia, some parts of Asia, things are getting much more positive. Even here in Europe, we've got surgeries taking place now, which we hadn't anticipated. Other countries, unfortunately, are still in lockdown and things are progressing slower, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. So during these turbulent times or challenging times or extraordinary times, I want us to try and stay engaged together. And that's what Polytech Connect is all about. It's all about our education, so it's about staying educated. Life is about learning all the time. We never stop learning in life, and we might forget things. The next call you have with a customer or the next phone call you pick up, something might resonate from what we're saying today or last week or next week that might help you with your communication. And more importantly, it's about, at the moment, staying safe. And I hope everyone out there, wherever you are, is safe, well, your families, your co-workers, and we just want to say hi to all of you. This is about education, and it's about gaining. If you're new to the Polytech family, it's about reinforcing. If you're fairly new to the company, you've done a training with me, we forget so much so quickly. Or if you've been with us for many years, it's about deepening your knowledge and reinforcing and reminding and repeating what we know. We need to be confident in front of our customers. If we're not confident, we don't gain their trust. And this is about a communication, a relationship that we build with our customers of trust. Today, I'm going to be specifically talking about the history of breast implants, but the flow of these weekly webinars will be pretty much following the journey I take you on during my foundation training, which I like everyone to do, or we like everybody to do, just so we're all talking the same language wherever we are in the world. As the weeks progress, at the end of each week, I will let you know what we'll be doing next week. And obviously, we also send a reminder email. So if you feel these are of value to you and other people should be signing up, then spread the word. I'd be very happy for anybody to join us from our internal teams, be them field-based, office-based, in the warehouses, whatever you're doing, manufacturing. We just want you all to feel part of the Polytech family. For those that don't know you, don't know me even, my name is Liz Bardwell, as it says on the sign there, and I live in the UK in a place called Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury is just here. It's the county town of Shropshire, and I live about 220 kilometres from London. This takes me about 3 hours to drive. It's a beautiful city. It's the birthplace of Charles Darwin, and I thought each week I would deliver a new photograph. This photo is of a statue called Quantum Leap, which is all to do with Charles Darwin and the evolution of life. So a bit of history and geography going on there for you. I joined Polytech in 2016, but I've been working in this industry since the 90s. I started as a rep selling products to customers, as many of our teams do, going into the operating theatre, and I really learned the job as I went along, and I became a sales manager and then a trainer, and then now joining Polytech, I deliver trainings, which I love doing, and I also go to many congresses, workshops to support the teams, but also to gain and increase my knowledge and depth of understanding. So let's start on our topic of today, the evolution of breast implants. This is really a history lesson. You know, the implants that we all sell today have evolved from what they originally started out to be. And I think it's really crucial that each and every one of us understand why things have changed, the reasons, the needs, the benefits of what we have now compared to the implants that we used to have, you know, in the 70s, in the 60s, even what they were doing pre the first silicone breast implant. So this is about a lesson of the evolution of breast implants. So let's begin. The female breast has always been captured in many different ways over many centuries, and it represents the female form. It can be beautiful, it can be ugly, it can be sexual, it can be maternal. But the female breast is something that's always been emulated to be beautiful in art. Women, therefore, have always wanted to utilize something to help them enhance their breast if fashion at that time dictated it. And here in 1858 is a first painted falsie. This was a device that went into the bodice of the woman to give her some projection. If, you know, some women don't have breasts and they need to have shape and form, and you can disguise it underneath your clothes with examples like this of falsies. The next slide clearly shows different types of girdles, corsets, devices that would clamp the breast, give the breast shape, give the breast uplift, again, depending on the fashion of the time. Now, this distinguished gentleman is Vincenzo Czerny, and he is a plastic surgeon from Germany, and in 1895, he documented the first breast augmentation, and he's deemed to be the father of cosmetic breast surgery. He basically had a woman who had a tumor. He needed to remove a breast. She was unhappy with having no breast, so he actually took a piece of her tissue and moved it to create a breast, and that was documented as a breast augmentation. And here you'll see I found this fantastic photograph of, and you can see him here with his beard, surrounded by students, certainly no social distancing in those days, no masks, and you can't imagine what sterility must. So things have changed a lot, even in the operating theatres. I also found some information about another German surgeon called Dr. Robert Gernseny in the 1890s, and he pioneered the use of, wait for it, paraffin wax to augment women's breasts. The paraffin wax was melted down and then injected. And here you'll see a picture of an earlier 20th century type of paraffin wax that was utilised. And the challenge wasn't really useful for the women, as in it caused hardening of the breast, deformation. It didn't deliver. Fashions continue into the 20th century. It's all about the bodices and the uplift. Then we go to the 20s, where everything was strapped down. You know, you can see evolution does have an impact on what's going on to the female form. But in the 20s, we start to first really hear and learn about fat transplantation, i.e. taking fat from one part of the body and injecting it or transferring it to the breast to give breast shape. It was very crude methods, and there was the very low take-up of the breast. Unlike today, where we have much more sophisticated ways of harvesting fat or engorging the breast, as you can see in the bottom right-hand side is the Brava system, which was about engorging the breast to add a little bit of volume. So, you know, even today we're utilising systems that were introduced way, way back 100 years ago. And then we come to the golden age of Hollywood, the 1950s after the World War, where it was all glamour and curves, and women were being shown the movies, and they wanted to emulate their superstars like Marilyn Monroe and Sophie Loren, but they didn't have anything. So what did they do? We've also got the first edition of Playboy coming out in 1953. It's all about the curves. You know, men wanted the curves, women wanted to have the curves. So then different methods of breast augmentation were utilised. Foam was placed into the breast, sponge, be it natural, synthetic, liquid silicone was injected, liquid paraffin continued to be injected, and flat breast augmentation. And you can see here in the picture, Dow Corning, who actually was a breast manufacturer in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they made industrial grade silicone, and this is silicone uniseal sealant that you would utilize in your bathroom to make sure that you didn't get any leaks. And this is the sort of thing that was actually injected into women's breasts, which is really incredibly unscrupulous. And then I found this. Bosoms can be increased 2 inches without pain. It's all the range from Japan. You can have silicone injections for $35. So during this time where women were being exposed to the glamorous Hollywood women, they wanted to enhance their breasts, and they just didn't know what was good and what wasn't. But there were many things that weren't good. The consequences of having something in your breast that shouldn't be in your breast cause granulomas, which are lumps, cause infections, scarring, capsule contracture, as you can see in the middle picture, potential mastectomy of the breast, and even death. And even now, in the 21st century, we still hear stories, very sadly, of women who are having silicone injected into their breasts and major complications. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of silicone before we continue. I'm not a scientist. We have many people at head office who are far more skilled at explaining the chemistry of all the materials that we utilize. So this is a very basic level, but I think it just hopefully will just fill in any gaps that you may have. So it's all about from sand to silicone. Silicon, not silicone. Silicon is the second most abundant element on Earth next to oxygen, and it's naturally occurring in sand, in quartz and rock. Silicones, so with the E on the end, is a family of chemical components of silicon. When you mix silicon with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and sometimes other chemical elements, you get silicon. You get polymer chains, and this creates your silicon. And you'll see here in the pictures the different diagrams of the chains. Dimethylsiloxane, and I've practiced that word many times. Dimethylsiloxane is the building block of most medical grade silicone products, including breast implants. And when you start getting these chains together, you might have a D4, a D5, a D6, depending on what type of silicone you want to actually have. Which takes us on to the fact that silicone is actually a generic word, in the same way oil is a generic word. Now, there's different types of oil, as there are different types of silicone. So you can see here, you've got salad oil and you've got motor oil. You would not be putting your motor oil on your salad, and you wouldn't be getting very far if you put your salad oil into your car. However, they are oil. So we have to understand what the different types of silicones are, or components that create our breast implants. We have LMW silicones, low molecular weight silicones, and these are the oils. These are the D4s, the D5, the D6. If you cut a regular silicone implant in half, the inside, if you touch it, is very greasy. You don't want to get it on your clothes. Years ago, the surface of the implants were very greasy because there was no barrier layer, and it was the oils transferring through the shell, diffusing through the shell. And these are the oils, the D4s, the D5s, the D6s. MMW silicones, or middle molecular weight silicones, form the gels. So this is the gel that we would put into our implants. The softer gel that we put into our breast implants, the firmer gel, the sharper gel that we'll put into our body contouring, those are the middle molecular weight silicones. And then we have the HMW silicones, the high molecular weight silicones. These form the elastomers or the rubbers, this would be the shell. The shell is a high molecular silicone. So it's basically just being aware silicone is broken down into different types of silicones. And it's what we do with our raw materials, and I'll talk much more about this next week during manufacturing to explain the different types of silicones and how we utilize them. Just to note, there is one supplier in the world of medical grade silicone. They're based in the USA. They have two brand names, NuSil and Applied Silicon. And we get our components from NuSil, and it's what we do with these that make the difference to our implants. We also have a proprietary recipe that we actually want to have from them, and they keep that as a secret. It's proprietary information. Just be aware that, as I think I mentioned last week, American companies always tend to change. NuSil is now merged with Avantar, who is a big biotechnology company. But NuSil is the one supplier of silicone gel, medical grade silicone gel. When we talk about silicone, when it comes to breast implants, it's always incredibly emotive, but I think we mustn't forget that silicone is contained in many different types of medical devices. Catheters, tubings, drains, gastric bands, the inside of syringes, the bottles that are used for the storage of blood, coatings on pacemakers, artificial joints, and of course, breast implants. But how have breast implants as such evolved? Prior to this part of the presentation, I've talked about the different types of materials that have been put in to the breast to enhance the breast. But the story starts when Frank Giroux from Houston, Texas, a plastic surgeon, had picked up a bag of blood. They put the blood into silicone bags. Previously, they used to have glass bottles of blood that they used to transport to the operating theatre. He felt the bag of blood, and he said that he felt that this was like, it could be like a breast implant, a breast field. Perhaps they could utilize something by filling a bag with something to create a breast, and that was his light bulb moment. And these are they: Thomas Cronin, Frank Jarove, and a very young Thomas Biggs, who was resident. They were the first plastic surgeons to implant a silicone gel-filled breast implant. And Don McGann, who was working for Dow Corning, one of the manufacturers at the time, was an engineer who was involved with this. But prior to the first human patient, the first guinea pig of a silicone implant was a dog called Esmeralda. And Tom Biggs said that the basic principle behind the prototype was simple. As a rocket achieves liftoff and thrust, it's the same thing with the breast implant. You want lift and thrust, and that's what a breast implant delivers to a woman. And this is that woman. Left-hand side, Timmy Jean Lindsay. 1962, she was the first woman to receive a silicone gel breast implant. The middle photograph is her just after her surgery, and the photograph on the right-hand side is her on her 80th birthday in 2012. And my understanding is she's still fit and well, living in Texas. Why was she the first woman to have breast implants? Well, she was a single mum with 6 kids. Money was tight. She'd had some tattoos. She'd obviously loved Fred at once upon a time, so you can see that on her breast. But she no longer loved Fred, and she didn't want her tattoos anymore. But she did not have the money to have her tattoos removed. So the offer was that if she was happy to receive breast implants, because obviously she was lacking in tissue, having had 6 children, she would have her tattoos removed. And that is why the picture on the right is a photo of her 30 years on with her breast implants, but no tattoos. The one thing she says she remembers, or the only thing she says she remembers about the day of her surgery, is this overwhelming weight on her chest. Nothing much else. So this is a picture of the first breast implant invented by Thomas Cronin, as you can see here, in 1966, the surgically implantable human breast prosthesis that was filed in August of 1963. These were the type of implants that were delivered at the time, were manufactured at the time. They were smooth shells. They were teardrop in profile, and you can see on the back they had patches so that these implants would not move, they would stay in place. But this first generation of implant had its challenges, as in it was a very thick, very stiff, very firm gel. A high rate of gel bleed. Go back to what I said earlier about the low molecular silicons. This is the oils, the greasiness, and they believed that the gel bleed was the reason why there were high rates of capsular contracture. And capsular contracture rates for these smooth first generation implants was up to 70%. And note that the patches and the tabs that they had on the back caused a stress point on the implant shell, and then the shell over time would rip. So having a patch on an implant over time, just slight movement can cause a weakness, which will then cause a tear, and the implant then will rupture. So it's something that we know now. You don't really want to put a tab on a shell of an implant. At the same time, the first generation of micropolyurethane coated implants, based on the patent by a surgeon called John Pangman, were being developed. And the first manufacturer was Harp Markham, and they were distributed in the US by a company called Work. And you can see here, polyurethane foam coating a silicone implant. This is actually the Ashley Natural Y implant. Remember Natural Y from last week? It's the first product we started to distribute after we did some market research for Cooper Surgical back in the day. This was from 1969, this implant, and you can see there's no longer polyurethane foam on this implant because it's been removed, but you can see clearly the Y shape just here, because the polyurethane foam was coated around and sutured together to just cover the implant. It wasn't attached and vulcanized in the way we manufacture our polyurethane coated implants at Polytech. Again, another image of the Natural Y Optimam implant from the 1970s. What we do know about polyurethane is this is the most well-documented surface of an implant that there is. The first publications were in the 1970s. Frank Ashley published his preliminary report on a new type of breast prosthesis, i.e. polyurethane-coated implant. And then in 1972, he reported further studies on the Natural Y breast prosthesis. Hollywood, USA, the manufacturers of breast implants were all US-based. Plastic surgery did tend to come out really commercially from the US, but at that time there were many different companies manufacturing breast implants. Things evolve, these stiff gels with the thick shells, the manufacturers decide, let's make the shell thinner. Let's make the gel not so stiff, so it was more runny, it was more viscous. Less viscous. However, there were high rates of rupture, and these were the implants that were most cited in the lawsuits after the first silicone scandal of the 90s. And you can see here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is a typical example of those types of implants. And even today, we go into surgery and we see surgeons removing these implants, and they're just a gooey mess. In the late 80s, most of the companies had smooth silicone gels. Nobody had textured. There was polyurethane-coated implants from Natural Y, and the capsular contracture rates of polyurethane foam was significantly less than that of the smooth gel, so that other manufacturers out there thought, right, we've got to do something. So Mentor introduced their Siltex surface. McGann introduced their BioCell surface. Dow Corning, no longer in existence, they introduced their MSI surface, and Bioplasty, another manufacturer who doesn't exist anymore, introduced the Misty surface. Why? Because the theory was texturing would reduce capsular contracture and rotation. Capsular contracture, malposition, still the top two complications in breast surgery. Around about the same time, Dow Corning introduced the low bleed technology, or the barrier layer. Remember I said the oils would transfer across the surface of the shell of the implant, make it very greasy. People believe that these oils increase the rates of capsular contracture. So if they could occlude, you can't completely stop the gel bleed, but you can tighten up the ability for the oils to go through the surface. By having a barrier layer, you're reducing your oils, and the capsular contracture rates did in fact reduce. Never as good polyurethane coated implants, I hasten to add. In the 1990s, manufacturers on the market: Mentor, Dow Corning, Surgitech, McGann, Bioplasty, Porex, and CUI. And then things changed for the silicone breast manufacturers. There was a television program by an American journalist, primetime TV, face-to-face with Connie Chung. And she had a woman there who said that her breast implants were causing her autoimmune problems. They were basically making her so sick. America being America, primetime TV, the lawyers got hold of this. It was in the press. Crazy time followed, and the attorneys started to instill fear into women. You know, if you believe your breast implants are causing you your illness and you could die, come to us, we'll help you get back at those breast implant manufacturers. And this then highlighted to the FDA, or highlighted very much to the world, that the FDA, breast implants had actually never been studied in a pre-market approval scenario. Currently, if you want to bring a new product to market in the US, you have to do a study. But breast implants had never, they just sort of been grandfathered into the system. So there were public hearings highlighting this, there were comments to the agency, manufacturers, physicians, patients, members of the public. And the FDA, the commissioner at the time, had to do something. He basically said to all manufacturers, you have 90 days in which to agree to submit to doing a post-market approval study on silicone breast implants. These will be for breast reconstruction patients. Silicone gel implants can only be used for these specific study cases. And if you, as a manufacturer, choose not to partake or submit to do this study, you have to cease distribution of your products. So big shoot across the bows from the FDA to the breast implant manufacturers. They went to Surgitech specifically and said there was concerns about the breakdown components of polyurethane foam, and they wanted to have a review of this. And again, we had to, or at the time, Surgitech had to deliver this information back to the FDA. They did deliver back, and this is a really crucial slide. The FDA reviewed risk assessment of polyurethane foam coating and found that the risk of cancer, if any, appears small and would very likely be outweighed by the surgical risk in removing polyurethane-coated breast implants. You had a higher risk of a problem if you tried to remove the breast implant than the risk of getting cancer. So it's very clear there. And then there was a published paper after, reinforcing this. However, despite the FDA reviewing the data that Surgitech delivered, they did choose to withdraw from the market. Again, last week I mentioned this. Surgitech was just a small part of the Bristol Myers Squibb company, a huge American company. And this negative press about breast implants, causing these problems, was having a negative impact on their name. So they just chose, to walk away. And so it's not because of scientific evidence that polyurethane-coated implants stopped being sold in America. It's because the company chose to close down the manufacturing. And this is when, in Germany, we suddenly didn't have our supply of polyurethane-coated implants. So we went to the company who we were distributing gluteal and calf implants in Brazil and worked with them to manufacture our Polytech Microthane breast implants. So, apart from the surgeons who were part of the study, 2 companies chose to stay in the breast implant business. They agreed to do a post-market approval study. This was Allergan, back in the day called McGann, and Mentor. And they could only follow patients for breast reconstruction with silicone gel breast implants. All other surgeons in the US had to move to using smooth saline implants. And I found this picture here of, I'm sure everyone knows Pamela Anderson from the Baywatch days, the 90s, very full upper poles. This is very much a smooth saline look. Okay, so the US went from using textured round implants to using smooth saline. Textured saline didn't deliver. The shells would rub together and you get leakage of the saline and deflation. Over in Europe, the Medical Devices Directive was set up and the CE certification was launched. Silicone implants were under the spotlight all over the world. There was a huge downturn in silicone gel use. Some surgeons in other countries did in fact move to saline implants, but most surgeons continue to utilize and use gel implants. In 1998, they changed things, and the CE mark is what you have to have in a breast implant to sell it into the European community countries, and other countries around the world recognize the CE mark. And we were the first company manufacturer to get this. silicone gel is having a negative attack from the press. So there was a company called Lipomatrix who decided, well, let's see if we can find an alternative filler to gel. And the Trilucent breast implant was introduced. It was filled with purified soybean oil. This was heavily marketed to the consumer in women's magazines, and it was very much targeted the UK market. In fact, half of all the Trilucent breast implants were put in the UK. But we have to beware. Not all things that are new are always good. This product was withdrawn from the UK market because there was a high rate of rupture and this really pungent smell coming from the implants. And if we fast forward to 2006, it was found that there were potentially hazardous components in the breakdown of the soybean oil. Basically, there was carcinogenic properties within the breakdown, and all the women with Trilucent breast implants had to have those implants removed. Okay, there's a big difference here to what the polyurethane-coated implant statement from the FDA was. The risk of removing was higher than the risk. With the Trilucent breast implant, it was essential that women with those implants had them removed. It's important to know all this because it just puts things a little bit more into perspective when we come more to the present day. Let's go back to 1998, Dow Corning. Dow Corning was one of the biggest breast manufacturers. Remember, they were the company that made the first ever breast implant that was used in 1962. They were asked to settle a lawsuit for 170,000 women for $3.2 billion in 1998, 22 years ago. How much money would that be now? I can't even imagine. Ultimately, he didn't have the money, and it led to its bankruptcy, and the company does not exist anymore. Despite the fact the silicone scandal, the silicone scare, the silicone moratorium is taking place in the US surgeons, along with McGann, started to develop the anatomical implants, the fourth and fifth generation of breast implants, round and anatomical, semi-solid, highly cohesive, form-stable gels. It was to stop any silicone migration if there was a rupture of these implants. And they really promoted this enormously in special academies, special trainings. You could only use this product if you'd been through a training. And this is why there's a big difference between the US and the rest of the world, because we didn't have a silicone ban. We were able to embrace anatomical and see that surgeons found that there are patients who benefit from an anatomical shape rather than a round shape. It was called the gummy bear. If you cut it in half, you can see very much like the implants. But in fact, it was so firm that if you actually manipulated the gel, you could break those chains and you would fracture the gel, and you'd misshape the implant. It would never come back to its original shape. So there was a trade-off. It was too firm, and therefore, when you tried to put it through an incision that was too small, the gel would just break. It would fracture. And it was actually the launch of the anatomical use that really sort of like sent McGann Allergan on their way to become the number one manufacturer back in the day, and the 410 with the biocell surface so that implant would stay stable. Medical devices under the spotlight over here, they were changed from class 2 to class 3. Again, we fulfilled those requirements. Breast implants, I think we need to be aware of the most strictly controlled group of medical devices. They're under the spotlight, and even today, they're under the spotlight even more. So, 14 years on from the original moratorium of silicone gel, the FDA, on the same day at the same time, lifted the ban on silicone gel to both Mentor and Allergan. They had to agree to do a post-market approval study to continue studies. And what did the US surgeons do? They'd spent 14 years using smooth, round, saline implants. They just moved straight away to smooth, round, gel implants. Those 14 years, the rest of the world had embraced anatomical implants. So we have to remember one of the reasons we're in such a disconnect, the US to the rest of the world. The statement from IQAM said that there's no better alternative material available, and there was more safety studies done on breast implants to actually allow them to come back onto market. So people felt that they're safe. We know everything we need to know, and it was okay to utilize them. Scandal follows breast implants. In 2010, a French manufacturer, Polyimplant Prosthèse, or PIP, was banned from the market. It was found that they were actually utilizing industrial-grade silicone rather than medical-grade silicone. Remember the slide earlier, NuSil, supplier of medical-grade silicone? PIP had been basically fraudulent in their manufacturing, fraudulent in their paperwork. It was highlighted by very high rates of rupture on insertion. And I always say, when I was a baby rep back in the 90s, I remember going into the operating theatre, watching a surgeon putting in a PIP implant. It ruptured on insertion. And he said to me, you know what, that happens all the time. It doesn't matter, I've got a stock here, I'll just go and get another one. So it took a long time before this came to the authorities, and when it did and it was investigated, the company is no more. Now the women with the PI implants, if it had been ruptured, if they have a rupture, they had to have it removed. If not, they had to be checked regularly. Next evolution that we go to is in 2013, and G&G Biotechnology introduced the first lightweight breast implant. The lighter way, this is the original branding of the G&G B-Light breast implant. And something to note, Polytech has always been the manufacturer of the B-Light breast implant. What don't people want? They don't want weight, they want volume. Until now, until 2013, surgeons didn't have to think, if you have what volume you want, it will be this weight. Now you can have the volume, but a much lighter weight. Surgeons need to think about this. And then, July 2018, B-Light became part of Polytech. We merged together, and now we have the ability, as we do today, to sell the B-Light portfolio. And you're very lucky that this isn't 2018, because in 2018, unless you could actually do this mermaid pose in this picture here, you were not allowed to sell the breast implants, she says with a straight face. Let's move on a little bit more. Let's talk about from 2011. Well, I've gone back, not on. Back to 2011. BIALCL. The ongoing discussion about breast implants, specifically textured implants. This is on everybody's radar. It's important to note that the FDA data is what we go by. The most recent FDA data is from July 2019, where they record 573 cases worldwide. That's not 573 deaths, that's cases documented. Allergan had 481, 84% of those. Now the big question, is it because of their texturing? Is it because they've sold the most? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. There are many theories about ALCL, and to date there is nothing proven. Okay? We work on evidence-based medicine. Another discussion point that's starting to raise its ears, as it were, or its eyes, is BII, breast implant illness. Breast implant illness is something that people are starting to present at congresses, start to talk about. There's no proven scientific evidence as to what causes it. There are over 90 different symptoms: anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, memory loss, muscle weakness, night sweats, weight gain, mood swings. I'm going to just be really cheeky here. and find me a woman of a certain age who doesn't go through some of those symptoms. But the bottom line is we don't know enough about this. People are keeping an eye. Some women asked to have their breast implants removed and they're absolutely fine after that. All these symptoms disappear. Other women, they stay the same. But let's not forget how many women have breast implants who are absolutely fine with no problem. So it's something that we need to just be aware of, we need to be sensitive to, and know it's sort of coming into the discussion point at congresses more and more. And societies and health authorities are starting to, collate information. And now we've got COVID-19, which has come along and impacted the breast implant aesthetic arena enormously. But despite that, despite what we're going through, this is a time for us to think about the future and focus on what will make Polytech the game changer. What we are different, we're focused, we are so much about giving something to surgeons that's unique and innovative and of value. And we just launched our new surfaces in Be-Lite, the Be-Lite Mesmo and the Be-Lite Microthane, alongside our Be-Lite Polytext. Later in the year, we will be launching Be-Lite Smooth. So despite all the negativity that we have sometimes about ALCL, about breast implant illness, there's exciting times ahead, and there is light at the end of the tunnel after COVID. I'm going to wrap it up. Basically, silicone gel breast implants have been around for more than 57 years. And Polytech continues to offer true innovation with our portfolio. So we want to focus on the positives that we can offer our surgeons to help them to differentiate their practices when they get back into business, which will, in some countries, be very soon, maybe a little longer for others. So we've done the history or the evolution of breast implants. A lot of information there, I know. Hopefully you've learned something new. I've certainly added to what I would normally do in my presentation with some extra slides. I was trying to get a photo of Esmeralda the dog, but unfortunately we couldn't locate one. But if I do ever get one, we'll send it out to you. Remember, Esmeralda was the first guinea pig for the first ever breast implant. Let's just remind ourselves about Polytech. We want to continue to build our brand. The Polytech name is a name that we want all surgeons to be aware of. We want to become the clear international leader in breast aesthetics and reconstruction, and to continue on our journey of true innovation, along with education, will equal success for you, for all our partners, and for our customers, and ultimately, happy patients. Happy patients means successful, happy surgeons. I repeat myself a lot, and I don't apologise for it, because the more you hear something, the more it goes in your brain. The more I hear myself, the more I remember stuff. So hopefully it's the same for you too. Next week, same time, same place, we're going to be doing quality manufacturing and the surface and texture options that Polytech offer. I just want to review all that we are, so you can just add a little bit more depth to, why we believe and have quality made in Germany, and it means and stands for so much. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to say to the 93 people watching, hello, I can now see all your names here. Q&A. Anybody got any questions at all? Micah's going to read through the questions. Sorry, we can't help. We got a question here in Chinese, but unfortunately we can't answer it.
The question was if it's going to be translated in Chinese. Hello, everybody.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Questions. I don't think we have any questions.
No, for now we don't.
I'm just going to look through the list to see who we've got come in, see if there's more names. Pakistan, we've got come in. Italy, still got people here from UK. Israel, hi. Germany, hi.
So we have a question from Brazil.
Okay, hi Brazil. Hello.
What about the conical implants?
Conical implants. Okay. Conical implants are an implant that used to be sold by, or is still sold by, Cinemed. Cinemed was the other manufacturer of polyurethane-coated implants. They lost their CE mark to sell in the CE certified countries in 2015. And they had a product called Conic. And we have picked it up, and we are going to be launching in the near future the conical implant. I think we're just going through our final regulatory approval. We have to get everything signed, sealed, and delivered, but we will be launching the conical implant in the not too distant future. And please be reassured that marketing will have amazing materials to support the launch of this product. It's a niche product. It's an unusual product, but it certainly has a place for lifting the breast where you don't need to do a mastopexy. I hope that helps. Any more questions?
We have another question from Czech Republic. By your opinion, Liz, more progress in the future will be done in surfaces or in fillings?
Okay, I know that we're working on a project called the Spider Silk Surface, AmSilk. That's in clinical trials at the moment. I think as a company, we're always going to look to go for innovation. Regarding fill, Be-Lite gel is unique and innovative. You know, we are the only company that offers something that is different to other companies with our Be-Lite gel. And I'm sure, you know, our mission is to, or our vision is to be the leader in breast aesthetics and reconstruction. So I think that, you know, different materials will come into play, but I'm not R&D. I don't make those decisions. So I hope we'll continue. I know we will continue on our journey of innovation and bringing something exciting to the market that's needed. Meaningful innovation, not just doing something just because. Any more questions? No?
Perfect.
Any more? Hello.
We have one more question about our expanders. If the tissue expander can be filled more than maximum size in catalogs?
That I need to clarify with Oliver. I know that some of our implants, they do have an adjustability, different styles. The breast implant specific, not 100% sure they do. So whoever's asked that question will get some clarity from Oliver as to what we recommend as a company. If I was off the record, I know that they would, because it's such an elastic, strong shell. But we have to talk with our Polytech hat when we're with surgeons and just say, you know, the correct information. So we'll get back to you.
Perfect.
Any more? No? So to everybody, thank you again for taking the time out of your